time kind of stood still for that moment. And, I could hear a pin drop and I was kind of like shocked.
Welcome into the NFL on Fox podcast. I am your host, Dave Helman, and we are a week away from the 2024 NFL Draft. We are into crunch time, the longest portion of the NFL calendar, at least it feels like it to me. We are rapidly approaching the end. Please make sure, as we go here over the next week or so, make sure you click all the buttons. You're subscribed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Programming note, we have one final Writer's Mock coming your way on Monday. Get you ready for all of the possibilities and options awaiting in the first round of the NFL Draft. We will have recaps on Friday and the following Monday, taking you through all of the madness from this year's draft. So that is coming up over the next week. So much draft content for you to digest. In the meantime, really fun conversation today. We had an opportunity to sit down with the one and only Dwight Freeney, newly elected Pro Football Hall of Famer, longtime Indianapolis Colts edge rusher and all-pro, guy who 11th overall pick in the 2002 NFL Draft, knows a thing or two about the draft process. A wide-ranging conversation with Dwight, from the Hall of Fame selection process to those great Colts teams, his own experience with the NFL Draft, what he would impart onto rookies in this year's class, as well as just the way the game of football has changed here over the last couple of decades. Like I said, just a really fun, informative conversation with one of the best edge rushers of all time. Go ahead, check it out. All right, I'm joined now by newly elected, soon to be inducted Pro Football Hall of Famer Dwight Freeney, which, let's get the obvious thing out of the way. Like, does that get old? I can't imagine it does.
No, never, man. Never. I've been telling everybody I have a permanent smile on my face ever since hearing that, the news that I'm going to be a Hall of Famer. I swear to God, it just, as soon as I think about it, done.
I'm curious. I mean, it's so awesome that you got in your second year of eligibility. I'm always interested, from the outsider's perspective, and it's not fair, but you see it and you say like, oh, he didn't get in this year, but he'll get in, but that's easy for me to say. Like, you being a perennial all-pro, one of the best players of your generation, what was that like, even having to wait a year and then finally, getting that validation when you did finally get the call?
Yeah, it's not an easy process. And for people that say it is, they're lying. Okay. Look, I take pride in my life. I try to only worry about things that I can control. And I think it's, pretty good. It's served me well. Well, this one you can't control. And I worried. After the first year it didn't happen, I'm like, man, how long am I going to have to wait? Because there's a lot of guys that, should be in and that are not in. And they've been waiting year in and year out, and just waiting, and they deserve to be in there. So it's really nerve-wracking. The first year, I think I did a good job of not paying attention until, I had like Hall of Famers, Bruce Smith and Jason Taylor and Michael Strahan. They'll come up to me, hey man, you are a shoo-in this year. Don't worry. First ballot, I promise. You'll be there. Don't even worry about it. I'll save my congratulations to when I congratulate you right now. That's so once you start hearing that, and that's what I heard, I was like, man, I might actually have a chance. And then when it doesn't happen, you got to hide. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't do it. And then and the thing is, even when you accept it and just say, you know what, it is what it is, every one of your friends, anyone who knows you, are so upset and they are so pissed off. And they're like, man, I can't believe you didn't make it. They keep bringing it back up. And you don't want to hear it. You don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's done. It's over with. It didn't happen. And people won't let it go. So that's what makes it even worse. So thank God it happened this year, because I couldn't go through another year.
So and you're totally right. Like it's an involved process, right? Like there's a cut down to 30 and there's a cut down to 20 and a cut down to 10. So, and then obviously the Hall of Fame has developed this kind of iconic gesture where you get the knock on your hotel room.
Yep.
So not only do you get it, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's your coach, it's legendary coach Tony Dungy that delivers the news.
Yeah.
Like, not obviously, it's the dream and the goal to get the news regardless, but then you get to share it with somebody. Like, what was that like?
I mean, it's one of those moments where time kind of stood still for that moment. And, I could hear a pin drop and I was kind of like shocked. And people were like, well, how could you possibly be shocked? You knew you were going to be a Hall of Famer. And I said, you know what? It doesn't matter like what you think it's going to be. When it actually happens, it's the most, draining, great, overwhelming feeling that you could ever have, because it's kind of like you can't prepare yourself, because you don't have the emotion that's attached to the moment. So, to have Coach Dungy there, I mean, the guy where it all started, me opening up a door, going into my golf club, and he's sitting right there. Like, what are you even doing here? What are you doing? It just kind of blows my mind. It was the greatest moment ever.
You just have that delayed realization where you're like, oh, you would only be here right now for one reason, probably,
Yeah. But you see the code, obviously. You see all the cameras. You kind of already know what it's going to be.
One more question about the Hall of Fame process itself. I think I read Colts owner Jim Irsay is going to induct you when we get there in August.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, and the bonds are strong at any team where you won a championship. But even saying that, it feels especially strong with these Colts teams. Like, I'm just even by, like I said, even by like championship standards, it feels like it goes a step beyond even like brotherhood. I mean, Jim Irsay brought Jeff Saturday back to be the coach. Reggie Wayne is coach receivers in Indy right now. Like, it goes without saying the contributions that like Peyton Manning made. Like, why do you think that it is that strong in Indianapolis?
I think it starts from the top down, and I think the way Jim carried himself with us and how he would do anything that he possibly could to help us achieve greatness, having that family-oriented atmosphere all those years while we were there with Coach Dungy and Bill Polian, kind of setting that as a standard of what we wanted to bring in. It wasn't just the best player on the board. You had to be a great person and a great player. And I think that combination set up to a great formula. And why you've seen so many wins over that decade there from the 2000s to 2010s, where we set records in how many wins we had during the regular season, is because the environment and just what we did there in Indianapolis was so special. So, it's one of those things that never get old. You see your boys that you played with, and it's like you're seeing your family members again, and you're seeing coaches that coached you. You just can't do anything but laugh and smile. It's because it's flooded with so many great memories, and it started from up top.
Certainly, I'm not trying to throw shade at the many legendary offensive players that were on those Colts teams. But is it important to you at all that those Colts defenses are now represented in the Hall of Fame? I mean, with the receivers and Peyton, it's easy for the average fan to forget, like, they had Freeney and Mathis and Bob Sanders. I mean, is it important that gets some representation?
No, I think so. And it feels good to be the first guy in there from that, that team. And it's just, look, you win a lot of games and you have to win a lot of different ways. And obviously, we had an amazing offense, amazing players on the offensive side. But you don't win Super Bowls with just one side of the ball. You don't win that many games with just offense. You have to have offense, defense, special teams, and a great coaching staff. And, hey, I'm the first guy to represent our defense. There's going to be more. I promise you. Robert Mathis, I talk about it all the time. He holds a stat that is one of the most underrated stats that you can have. Is people don't realize when you get a forced fumble, that is equivalent or sometimes even greater than getting an interception. Okay. And because you get the ball back, and more times than not, it's behind the line of scrimmage. So your field position is even better. And sometimes you get caused fumbles and someone recovers it and takes it to the house. How often do you see that? And he has led the entire history of the NFL from that statistic. All right. Having that stat is a big deal.
That's pretty
imagine having, the person who has, and I don't have no clue who this is, but the most interceptions in the history of the game not be in the Hall of Fame. It probably wouldn't happen. So I know he's coming. It's just a matter of when, and he'll be there to join.
If I had to guess, there's a couple more coming because I think Reggie will get that phone call as well at some point. So here on our show, obviously we're a little more than a week away from the NFL draft. We're very focused on what's coming up with the draft. Couple of things I wanted to ask you about the draft. And for starters, I think it's phenomenal. You are going into the Hall of Fame with the other major DN taken in your draft class, Julius Peppers.
Oh my goodness.
I'm curious, y'all went 1-2 in terms of edge rushers in the draft.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy. I think he went 2, you go 11, and y'all just go on these tears through the NFL, and now you're going to the Hall of Fame together. I mean, how cool is that? And also, I guess, what's your relationship with Julius Peppers, and where did it start, and how did it grow?
It's kind of crazy, man. We kind of started this journey together at this place, where we were kind of in all the award ceremonies and checking each other out, like, oh, Lombardi Award, et cetera, in college. And, so our conversation, when we're talking, me and Julius, was always kind of like hand in hand. Coming out, it was kind of like, all right, I know Julius is going to be one of the top defensive ends. We've been on all the same award type of recognition type of shows, et cetera. Where am I going to go? And I get drafted the same year. And all of a sudden, he has a great rookie year. I have a great rookie year. When we're playing year in and year out, you're always looking at stat line. And I always do, what did Julius do today? Oh, he had a big game. I better have a bigger game, man. And so there's always that competitive type of thing that's already built into the cake. So from us to kind of go out on the same year, as in go in the Hall of Fame, the same class. It kind of goes full circle. Things just really go full circle. It's really awesome.
I was prepping for this, and I kind of, I knew y'all were from the same generation. I knew you were drafted around the same time, but I looked at it, I was like, holy shit, they were drafted 9 picks apart, and now they're going in together. I think that's a really cool full circle moment.
Yeah.
So I would be curious, just in general, I know it was a little bit ago, but with guys getting ready to get drafted, what's your lasting impression? And maybe because of where we are, like, what's this time? Like, I think everybody remembers hearing their name called, but what about like a week before where you're just sick of waiting?
Listen, man, it's something. It's something because when I got drafted in college, it was kind of like, look, I'm sitting there in a room with all of my teammates, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking with my family members, and we're just sitting there like, okay, when am I going to get drafted here? I have no clue. And for me, I guess I had a clue, right? It was either going to be the 10th pick or between the 10th and I think the 21st or something like that. So you're sitting there like your life is going to change, and you don't know when it's going to change. And look, I grew up a Giants fan. Okay. Huge New York Giants fan. So you're always looking like, okay, is the Giants going to somehow trade up. Or, maybe I don't get picked until the 15th pick. And then I get to play for the team that I've been watching my
Right.
entire lifetime. So there's all those emotions. So when you actually get picked, it's like you kind of, for me, I forgot all about the Giants. I forgot about all these other teams that mattered. It was like, man, I am an Indianapolis Colt, and here we go. And that's where my brain just went to. So I didn't have to obviously wait long, but to have a guy who was projected, I don't know. Let's think about Aaron Rodgers or somebody who was projected to go early and went late, or a guy that was supposed to go in the first and went in the second. It must have been terrible to sit there and wait and figure out what's going on. Now, when you get into the NFL and you look back at that type of thing, it doesn't matter as much because you can be drafted as a first round draft pick and be out of the NFL in 2 years,
Right.
a year, 3 years. You could be a sixth round draft pick like Tom Brady. And all of a sudden, you're one of the greatest quarterbacks you've ever lived. It's about the work that you put in when you get there. And that's what's most important. So for all those guys who are going to be sitting there and waiting to get drafted, and this is going to be nerve-wracking for them, they just have to just understand this is just the beginning. It doesn't matter as much. And especially now, because everything is so slotted from a money perspective. It isn't like back then when you're like, yo, I'm second pick, I'm going to make $50 million. Hell no, I'm not. So now all of a sudden it's just you get to where you're going to go and you have to be the best you could possibly be. That's it.
I'm curious, especially like you hear, and I get it, but you hear so many stories about guys, using their draft slot or how many guys in their position group went ahead of them as motivation. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing a job and you got to have a professional mindset every single day. But is there, in your experience, like what motivated you early in your career?
I think I was self-motivated. I'll be honest with you. I mean, look, I had a chip on my shoulder because I was always considered undersized, right?
Right.
So I always felt like I wanted to prove everybody wrong here. I wanted to show everyone that, look, it's not about, being 6'5" and 285 or whatever, the prototype defensive end. Look, I'm not out here trying to block shots and grab rebounds. I'm out here just trying to go ahead and make some plays. I start at point A and I got to get to point B. I have natural leverage. You always like the coach stay low. Well, shoot, if I'm already low, how you gonna move me? So that was kind of what I used personally as motivation. It wasn't so much, I guess, for me. Hey, this defensive end, this other guy I want to prove them wrong. I guess you can use all of that. But for me, I didn't have that many guys before me where I'm like, oh, they're considering him over me. How could they? So for me, it was a different experience. It was really just Julius, and I can understand why. This man is a mountain of a man. He is 6'5", 6'6", 280, and you had to deal with him. And that's just what it is.
So let me ask you this, and I think it's such an interesting idea.
Yeah.
You just talked about how you were seen as undersized. You came into the league. We talk so much about how like the game has changed. You came into the league at a time like in the old days, like before a lot of these changes happened that like changed the game of football, changed the way we look at edge rushers. And not only that, you like played through that kind of evolution into more of the sport we see now. I would just be curious for your opinions on like how you adapted to that and how the game has changed, how you rush the passer, player safety rules, things like that. Just in general, the game has changed so much since you got drafted.
Yeah, the game has changed. For one, I mean, look, we'll never have. I remember there were weeks where we're playing, I don't know, Jacksonville or Houston, and they literally passed the ball 15 times. Okay? 15 times.
That's maybe
Okay?
happening like in a monsoon these days,
Do you,
like
do you,
maybe.
yeah, people don't even understand. So that means, look, if you're only passing the ball 15 times, and as a pass rusher, for me, that meant, okay, I'm going to be doubled probably 95% of that 15 passes. So that means I only have 2, maybe 3 opportunities to actually have a real big impact on a pass play as far as getting a sack. If they decide to block me one-on-one, if the ball doesn't get thrown out right away. So from a pass rushing standpoint, that's not happening today. They're not running the ball. They're not running the air out of the ball the same way. So you have an opportunity to make a lot more plays as a guy who likes to get after the quarterback and get sacks, right? So that's one way for sure it's changed. Just the pass heavy offensive things. But it's also changed from a rule perspective on how when you get to the quarterback, how you take the quarterback down. I just had a conversation with Keyshawn. I said, look, I'm just going to be heavily fined. That's just what it's going to be. I mean, unfortunately for me, because as an undersized defensive end, it takes all of you to beat a 350-pound offensive tackle who is 6'6", 6'7". All right. So that means momentum I have to use all of my momentum around the corner. All right. It isn't like he's just like stopping, saying, oh, okay, well, I got beat. What else is there to do today? I don't know. Let's he is trying his hardest to now recover and try to push me off of my path. Okay. So there is tremendous amount of like effort that's going on. And now there's a quarterback sitting there, right there. You can't just turn that off, because if you turn it off and try to slow down, you get blocked or you miss the play. So you have to use all of your momentum to get this quarterback down, who actually might be the same size as you. He might be Josh Allen. He might be 250 pounds or 240 pounds or Ben Roethlisberger or something like that, where you can't slow down because he's just going to throw you off like a bear. So understand, it's just, I get the rules. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to protect, the quarterback and protect us players. And I understand that. And I appreciate that. But it's hard to do that. So for me, playing in this era, I would just have to be heavily fined. And it's just going to have to be the referee's just going to have to call it when he wants to call it. And then when he does call it, I'm like, all right, well, he called it. I'm sorry. And that's just what it's going to be. Yeah.
Do you think there's anything the league can do? And I know, they're instituting it where some of these penalties will be reviewable after the fact. Like, is there anything they can do? And I get it. People want to see offense, but is there anything they can do to at least tilt things back in favor of the defense, or at least?
I think you just make it reviewable, and when you review it, you're looking for intent. All right, look, your weight will land on the quarterback. It's gonna happen. It's going to happen. It's the question of how much of your weight, and if the ref thinks it's too much weight, how do you decipher that? I have no clue. All right. But that's just what it's going to be. If you're talking about slamming him down, I mean, when do you not slam him down? You're always going to slam him down in a way. It's just a matter of, did the ref look at it at that particular time and say, I think that was a little bit too hard? I don't know how that works. So I think you have to make it reviewable. All right. And I think you have to look at it from an intent of, did you actually try to hurt this man when you're trying to, make the play? Okay. Now, look, when you're playing the game of football, it's a controlled, violent game. I'm not trying to hurt you, but I'm going to try to hit you as hard as I possibly can to dislodge the ball from your body. I'm going to try to hit put my helmet on that ball, or do whatever I need to do to create some type of ball fly out or whatever it is. it's just part of the game. And it's hard to take that out of the game because then you're messing with the integrity of the game. And that's not how this game was built to be. And us defensive players, we're not just pawns in this master scheme or whatever of a quarterback's life, and what's happened with the quarterback. We all have a vital role. We all have families we have to support. We all have dreams that we want to achieve. And we have to be able to do our job. So I think the NFL at some point, hopefully they figure it out, whereas though it's fair all across the board, and we can protect the quarterbacks, but also allow the defensive guys to do what they need to do to make plays.
So as one of the, the undersized defensive end success story all the way to the Hall of Fame, I mean, it seems like there's more successful pass rushers of all shapes and sizes right now than maybe there ever have been.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you have a favorite among like the current crop?
I think, when I look at it, Myles Garrett, I've always been a fan of. I think what Myles Garrett does at his size is kind of cheating in a way. It's kind of like Myles Garrett's doing my moves. And he was bigger than me, like 6'4" or whatever. He's bending the corner. I'm like, how are you even doing that? Like I was doing it because I was, undersized guy. I had a little bit. He's a big guy, and he's using my spin move. And I love to see it, And that was one thing that, from era and how things have changed. I turn on the TV. I'm seeing guys use spin moves left and right, and I knew, for me, it was never coached. It was, look, never turn your back to the quarterback. And now you're seeing guys use it. So when I sit here and watch him do it, it's a beautiful thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You taught yourself from watching like And One, right?
Yeah. For me, it wasn't like I learned the move from And One, but And One mixtapes sparked the creativity for me to say, you know what? How do I make this offensive tackle look ridiculous? How do I make him just fall on his face? How do I, similar to how the And One basketball guys would try to make a move, which was all traveling, by the way, but he make a move, to make that defensive player just kind of fall and break his ankles. That's how it started for me. So that's when I was on the practice field trying to figure out, okay, if I do this, I move that way, and then I spin, and then I'm looking down. I'm like, oh, look at, he's on the ground. Okay, this is the move I need. Let's keep working. Let's keep working this move, and that's kind of where it started to where it ended up.
Let me ask you this, and I mean, you're so right. Like that's part of a good pass rusher's repertoire now. Like you need to be able to do that almost.
Yeah.
Was there ever a period back then, like were your coaches cool with it, or they were like, Freeney, what the hell are we doing?
Listen, man, I was blessed. And I had great coaches where they allowed me to go out and just be me. And in high school, my coach, Jack Cochran, is like, hey, I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. And then it's easy then, right? You're like the biggest guy, you're the fastest guy. What's he going to tell me? Like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And then when I got to college, I had a Deke Pollard. Deke Pollard was my first defensive line coach. He was actually a pro guy. And they teach similar moves at the D tackle position and things like that, where you can spin and do those types of things. So when I came in spinning already, it was kind of like, great, let's do it, So I never had coaches that told me don't spin. It was just go out, do you. And I had the best, greatest coach, and hopefully one day gets in the Hall of Fame, I think, is John Turlink. He said it best. He said, I don't care how you get there. You can do a somersault, backflip. You could do whatever you want to do, cartwheel. As long as you get there, that's all we care about.
And now 20 years later, Myles Garrett can do it at 6'5", 285 or whatever, 275, whatever his weight is.
No sense. And he's moving. Usually guys at that size is like, nah, I am not trying that move. I don't care. I'm just going to keep bull rush or whatever. But him, I love him, man. He's out there pulling that thing off. And it's not an easy move to do because you really have to be kind of a daredevil. because you're turning your back and you don't know if there's a guy sitting there waiting for you to knock you out. So it's kind of like, okay, here we go, and let's just do it. And then you turn around and hopefully no one's there.
You find I got like one more for you and I'll let you go, but I'm thinking about this. As good as you were at it, I have to imagine tackles at some point are like setting inside, like getting ready for
Absolutely.
it, right? Like
Absolutely.
what, I mean, how does that chess match develop as that becomes such a signature of your game?
Well, I think, you said it. This is chess. This is not checkers. These guys get paid too. They watch the film. They see this is a move that he likes to do. Now, for me, that wasn't my only move, and that wasn't the move I did most often. And that was the problem. Like, anybody can stop a spin move if the spin move's coming and everyone knows it's coming. But when you do so many different things as like a pitcher on a mound, and you throw a fastball and then you throw a changeup and it looks the same, but it's not the same, whatever it is, that's what you have to do as a pass rusher. You have to have a multitude of moves. And if you're really good, you have to make them all look kind of the same so that that offensive tackle commits to whatever you want him to commit to. So if you're an offensive tackle and you're saying, okay, here's Freeney, he loves to spin inside, let me just sit inside. Okay, good luck. I'm going to keep beating you with speed on the outside edge until you figure out and keep hitting your quarterback in the back of the head. Hopefully I don't get penalized. And that's just what it's going to be until you realize I can't set up that way. I can't protect that way because that doesn't make any sense. I have to be able to protect multitude of moves. So in the game, my game, you're blocking me in the inside, you're setting for the spin. That means something else is weak. That means you're not protecting the outside speed. And when you protect the outside speed too good, maybe I can spin inside now.
So I'm certain I'm not a pass rush guru, but I mean I've covered the league for a decade or more at this point. All right, so we can go spin, club, rip. You got your bull rush. Like what I'm trying to ask you is like how many moves did you have? Like a great pitcher has like 4, maybe 5 pitches, maybe. How many moves would you say you had?
I had a lot of moves, man, and I didn't have to go, to all of them because it's kind of one of those things where if it ain't broke, why are you trying to fix it? So if they can't hit my fastball, why am I going to go change and do something else just to show them I got something else?
Fair point.
Good luck. I'm going to chop hoop you to death, and I'm running the chop hoop until you stop it. And now, once you stop the chop hoop, then I'm gonna do a chop hoop spin. And if you stop the chop hoop spin, then I'm gonna come back after the chop hoop, or I can change it up. So, look, offensive tackles block differently. They are not all the same. Some guys are aggressive pass blockers, like they really like to punch out and be aggressive and get first contact on you. And you got guys who more absorb and just be massive and just kind of try to hold you and grab you. So the softer guys who like to absorb, you have to use more power moves. For the guys who are more aggressive, you be more elusive. So you have to build your game plan based on who you're facing. So if you only have 2 moves, it might work on that particular type of guy who's aggressive, but it won't work on the guy who is passive, more just engulfing. So then you have to have more power moves. So I had to develop different moves for different players. So one may be a slap, club, rip spin, chop, hoop, spin, cross, chop, outside spin, dip move, dip strike. So I had a lot of moves, but it depended on who I was playing.
Yeah. That's just good scouting, right?
Yeah.
All right. One last one for you. I could talk to you all day, but I'm sure you got places to be. One last one, and I'm just curious, 125 and a half career sacks.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Oh my God, that's impossible.
I
would say this. How about
okay.
How about say this? One of my favorites. One of them. I was playing against the Dolphins. I think it was in 2003. And I'm trying to remember if it was Greasy as the quarterback. I think he was. And I remember I ended the game kind of on a sack caused fumble. And for a defensive end to do that and end the game, or any pass rusher, any player, to end the game on a move like that or a play like that is comparable to there's 3 seconds on the clock in basketball, and I'm now going to take a 3-pointer and I drain it, or from half court, or whatever you want to call it. Bases are loaded. We are down by 3, and I'm at the plate, and I hit a grand slam. That is the type of feeling of ending the game on a cause sack fumble, where not only do they not get a field goal, I mean, you make the sack, they can't get a field goal. The game is absolutely over. And I've had that happen twice in my career, and those are probably the 2 ones I've meant the most because it made our team win.
Dwight Freeney called game. Hell yeah, I get it. All right, man. Hey, like I said, I could keep going, but we'll call it there. It's been so much fun talking to you, Dwight. Congrats on the Hall of Fame. Best of luck with everything as we get closer to the induction, man. I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thanks one more time to Dwight Freeney for hopping on. Like I said, so much draft content coming your way next week on the show when we come back. Got one final mock draft to get to. We've got a draft preview next Wednesday. And as I said, we will be recapping the whole thing on Friday, as well as the Monday once all 7 rounds are concluded. Plenty of draft content coming to the channel very soon. Make sure you're subscribed. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We'll have plenty of stuff on our social channels at NFL on Fox Pod. If you're hip to the Twitter game, Instagram, TikTok, you know the whole drill. Make sure you find us there for now. And then next week, we will be back with all the draft content you could ask for. I appreciate it. I'll talk to y'all real soon.